Well, Kenny, we'll let the listeners behind the curtain. You've just done an almighty yawn there, Aver. They're sitting through Tottenham to West Ham 0.
With you.
Wasn't great. Don't blame me. Don't blame me. Blame Antonio Conte and the Spurs coaching staff.
No, I must admit, first half was pretty dreadful. Expecting a little bit more second half, and we got it, but only from one team. I think West Ham were pretty consistent in terms of the quality of the performance from the first minute to the last, and that'd be a worry for West Ham supporters kind of going forward. Didn't see very little from them today. Actually reminded me a little bit of Leeds' performance. Yes, you know, some stage of the season, you look at the team, you think, oh, one performance night, and you think, oh, I'll be worried now. Got a bit of a sense of that watching Leeds yesterday at Everton, and again, West Ham today against Tottenham offered very little in way of an attacking threat.
So Tottenham are back inside the top four. They've been remarkably inconsistent, and yet another very slow start. They seem to really struggle in the first half of games, but then generally get the job done in the second half. What was the change today between first half and second half?
So I don't really get it, to be honest with you. We've all had those, we've all played in games where individually or collectively it just takes you kind of a while to get going, but consistently over the period of like 4 or 5 months, Tottenham this season, never been involved in that as in a team, whether you're competing high, middle of the table or the bottom half of the table. Look, the quality of football sometimes can't be great opening half of a game. You know, your passing's not quite at it or anything like that. But in terms of the intensity and how you start the game, you know, generally speaking, you're at it. You know, you're going out of the dressing room onto the pitch, and that's the kind of message that the management send, and that's the message the players are delivering to each other. You know, you're geeing each other up. We're going to be right from the kick-off today. First tackle, first header, you're going to win a first ball down the sides, first forward run. You know, really kind of high energy start to the game. That's what you want. That's what any team wants.
Well, that definitely wasn't there because West Ham had their best chance after 45 seconds.
Yeah, I know. Just don't see it. I'm really scratching my head, to be honest with you. It's a shame, really. Spurs supporters will be frustrated because we're looking at the team thinking, despite that inconsistency that you were talking about, they're still sitting fourth in the league. I mean, what position would have been in if they had tapped into that bit of consistency first half of the season? But that said, you know, glass half empty or half full, they're still in a really good position. Fourth now in that Champions League position. Got to push on now. They must get a bit of confidence from that game today, and a bit of confidence from the fact that they know that they're better, Nathan, than what they're showing at the moment. And if they can tap into that second half of the season, they'll be in a strong position to grab one of those Champions League places.
They are tough to watch at times. Even in the second half when they were dominant, they seem so risk averse. The amount of times Kulusevski got himself in a decent position and would turn back inside and play it back into midfield. The next thing it's with Højbjerg again. It's slowed down and they're allowing West Ham to come back. Is that the Conte game plan, or is that a lack of confidence?
I certainly can't blame Antonio Conte.
Well, look, he's not in the sideline, but he picked the team. He still picked
the team. That's a bit of a reach. That's a bit of a reach, Nathan. Unless he gave the team talk by video link in the dressing room.
Like when you think of them at their best last year, they were a devastating counter-attacking side.
Yeah,
that's not that Tottenham that we watched today.
No, they weren't. Even Harry Kane probably symptomatic of that today. I mean, that's as poor as 90 minutes as I've seen from Harry Kane. People point out to the assist for the Sun goal. Yeah, absolutely. But in terms of his all-round play was poor. And there's been too much of that. We're all Harry Kane fans in terms of the qualities in his goal scoring and the record, Jimmy Greaves' record, which he broke, and that was acknowledged before the game. And that's all well and good. But for him personally this season, for me, too many times, too many games, too many periods in games where he just kind of drifts through the games and kind of game passes and by. So even Harry Kane, as good as he is, for me, has to show a little bit more leadership, personality, lead from the front a little bit. And I thought Kulusevski actually done that second half. I know you mentioned him there, a little bit under par first half, certainly, yeah, but his intensity was there second half. Pressed early the start of the second half, won the ball back, set up 2 chances for Tottenham players at the start of the second half. That kind of set the tempo a little bit. He kind of led from the front a little bit, I thought, actually, Kulusevski second half. Son came on and impacted the game, and a couple of players really stood up. Romero, I thought, was excellent throughout the game. Ben Davies, Emerson Royale, obviously been an object of criticism for some time, had his best game in the Tottenham jersey. Skip after a typical start, improved. So they had enough good performances scattered around the team, Tottenham, to give them the edge over West Ham, who are pretty much below par all across the pitch. Maybe Souček being the exception. Declan Rice kept going, but apart from that, couldn't really find a performance, a 7 out of 10 performance anywhere in the team.
They did finally get themselves a Harry Kane, Heung-min Son connection in that second half. One of the big differences is obviously the form of Heung-min Son this season. Richarlison came in, and I was a fully signed up member of the Richarlison fan club when he was at Everton. Felt he had a little bit of Everton, had a good fight to his game. He still hasn't scored in the Premier League. I know he hasn't started all the games, and it's 15 matches, and maybe it looks worse than it actually is. What's gone wrong with him at Tottenham that it hasn't quite clicked for him?
Yeah, I wouldn't give up on him. Still get a sense looking at him. You saw the impact he had at Brazil in the World Cup playing that central striking position. I'm sure if you ask him what's your favourite position, this Spurs formation, Spurs usually play with a kind of narrow front three. He'd probably say centre of the three. I want to play down the middle.
That's never going to happen.
Yeah, it's never going to happen. Well, it might happen after the summer. If Harry Kane's out the door, he might have to be a little bit more patient. I still think he can impact the game a little bit more off that left hand side. He done it for Everton, didn't he? Most of his career, Everton was playing left of a three, and he can contribute from that area of the pitch, but he doesn't look as comfortable over that area of the pitch maybe his son when he's at his best. And you feel that front four for Tottenham, you feel if they're all playing at their best and they're all like forward, and he's probably the one who's going to miss out. You feel as if Kulusevski off the right and Son, they probably complement Harry Kane a little bit more than Richarlison. So could be a frustrating time ahead for him between now and the end of the season. And he might have to actually wait till Harry Kane departs the club, if that happens in the summer, before he gets that opportunity, that run of games, probably in his preferred position, which is down the middle.
I assume that's a tough thing mentally for a footballer. Some of them are built to start games, to be the main man, that's what Richarlison wants. So to tell him you're going to get 30 minutes here, then we'll throw you in for a game, but you might be back on the bench for the next game. Some players just need to play every match.
Yeah, but he can't complain, Nathan. If he was coming on scoring goals and performances at a high level, then I think you're entitled to go and bang on the manager's door and say, look, I need to be in this team. I'm good. My performances justify or merit. I don't think that's been the case with him this season. Yes, it's been a little bit fragmented, but when he's been in the team, his stats don't add up in terms of what you're talking about, goals scored, and generally kind of individual performance. I don't think it's been at a high level, though I don't think he can complain too much. But you're absolutely right. Sometimes these type of players, some players actually need to play just in terms of their body. They need to play. They need that regular minutes on the pitch, week in, week out, to get the very best of them. Some players can impact the game, come on for 15, 20 minutes, get up to the speed of play quickly and impact the game. Other players really need consistency in terms of minutes on the pitch. You just get a sense Richarlison might be one of those players.
At the other end then, you mentioned Christian Romero. I was definitely signed up to the Christian Romero fan club when he was at Atalanta, and you'd have looked at him in the Champions League and thought, like, this guy's going to score 10 goals a season from centre-back. He's so strong in the air, but also that he has it in him to be one of the real top centre-backs across Europe. Spurs fans, I think, have been a bit frustrated with him at times this season, that there's been a little bit of inconsistency there. Like today, did we see the very best of Christian Romero? Some of them tackles he won.
Yeah, thoughts on it. Wasn't just his tackles, it was his overall performance. I haven't got a sense of that. I've not got a sense of him personally myself. I haven't seen that myself in terms.
Has he got to the level you would expect from him consistently?
Well, I liked him straight away. I watched a lot of him at Atlanta, like you did. But of course, that transition to the Premiership, not easy for any player, defender, midfield, or forward player. So I was interested in terms of would he hit the ground running, and maybe took him a little bit of time, but you can see the qualities that he has, that kind of physicality, which he had, a little bit of confidence, how he carries himself on the pitch, never gets phased, a little bit brutish in terms of his attitude at times. But like I said to you before, I think it's a good thing to have, front foot defending, nice and aggressive, and he certainly is that. But there's more to his game than that, Nathan. When he gets on the ball, he's looking to play forward. Saw that today on numerous occasions. He's positive with his pass and doesn't take the easy option, unlike myself, and look to play sideways, looks to play forwards when every opportunity he can, and drives forward, prepared to dribble, drive into space. I almost criticised him today at times. Took up some unusual positions in central midfield area. He was over on the left wing at one stage, and that's a little bit too loose for me, because if the ball is turned over quickly, he's the one that I wanted in the behind the ball, because he's their best defender, best one-to-one defender.
Can you afford to do that when you're playing three at the back?
I think you can on occasion down your side of the pitch. You're playing right over three, which he does. Yeah, you can push yourself into advanced areas down that side of the pitch. But once you start coming into the central midfield areas, left wing, and getting yourself ahead of the ball, that's the thing which I'd say that's a bit of a no-no for me. Because once you turn over the ball, you have your best defender wrong side of the ball, and I wouldn't want to see that. So just a little bit more discipline from in terms of his positional sense. But his overall game today was really good.
A couple of weeks ago, we were covering Nottingham Forest against Leeds, and Vinnie Perth was on co-commentary, and I remember him saying I'd be surprised if Jesse Marsh lasted the next 24 hours. Just that sense again from watching Leeds that it wasn't going to be turned around, and sure enough, Jesse Marsh was gone. West Ham are in the relegation zone now. There's going to be a huge amount of pressure on David Moyes. They've one win since October. very different managers, Jesse Marsh and David Moyes, but do you look at Moyes and think maybe a change is what West Ham need at this stage of the season?
I don't get a sense that it changes what they need, and I don't get a sense really that that's what the board will do. Little bit of experience of the board, obviously, when I was at Birmingham, David Golden in particular, they don't kind of hoard him for him, to be honest with you. They keep their nerve. They're very reluctant in these situations to kind of pull the trap door. So I think David Moyes is safe, and just in terms of experience which he has in his track record, I think there was a stat mentioned about his number of wins in the Premiership, but just his general experience and being in this position. It's not as if he's a manager who's been constantly up competing at the top end of the table. He's been in this position before, so I think he's probably the one best served to get him out of this situation. So no, a little bit of pressure to an extent, I can understand that, but I see him there between now and the end of the season. And getting back to the Jesse Marsh one for me, I was surprised by the Jesse Marsh dismissal, I've got to be honest with you. And not so much because I never felt as if Marsh maybe had lost the dressing room. Results were poor, I understand that. And if Leeds had had a natural successor ready, Nathan, to step in, 1 out, 1 in straight away, yeah, absolutely, okay, fair enough. But looking at the situation behind the scenes at Leeds at the moment, there's scarping around looking for a manager. That's not the ideal situation at all. So I'd question the decision making there in terms of actually getting rid of Jesse Marsh. I never felt as if he'd lost the dressing room, was poor a position as they're in. And looking at them yesterday, I'd be really worried about Leeds going forward. They need to make a managerial appointment very quickly and need to get it right.
Just on the race for the top 4 then, it does often tend to be this slow bike race where teams are in that position scrapping for the top 4 because they're not putting together a run. They don't have a consistency. If it's between Tottenham, Newcastle and Liverpool, because it does feel with Manchester United's win that they're maybe kicking on and are thinking more about a title challenge than a top 4 challenge, how are you calling it right now?
Yeah, well, I was asked this question probably about a month ago, and it was Newcastle and Manchester United for me. That was at the time. Of course, things have changed since then. Newcastle have kind of had a wobble now. They've dropped out of top 4. I wouldn't give up on them, but I'd be a little bit concerned. Obviously, cup final next week. They've lost a couple of players through injury. Romero is out of the team at the moment. He's kind of a key player for them, but I still think they're capable of coming again between now and the end of the season, Newcastle. So I certainly wouldn't rule them out. Liverpool are the ones you just get a sense of late just finding a little bit, getting players back now. Jota back on the pitch yesterday, just playing with a little bit more confidence. Things coming together. Van Dijk back into defensive lineup. Still, obviously, a couple of issues there in terms of where the small weaknesses are in that kind of central midfield area. The young boys come in, though, done well of late. Bajcetic's in central midfield. So they're certainly capable, Liverpool, of making a charge. And that looks as if what they're doing. And certainly if Newcastle continue to falter and Spurs can solve their kind of problems in terms of consistency between now and the end of the season, Liverpool are more than capable of putting a run together. Now they 6-7 maybe wins on the spin, which will get them into that top 4 position. So yeah, wouldn't be as confident, to answer your question, wouldn't be as confident in terms of the United Newcastle show as I was maybe 4 to 6 weeks ago, but I'll stick with it for now. But certainly Liverpool in a far stronger position than they were.
There's maybe similarities at a different level between Manchester City and Liverpool, in that we know that they can go on these runs of 8, 9, 10 wins in a row. They've done it consistently, but it doesn't feel like it's happening for either of them this year. And Manchester City, after beating Arsenal, sort of felt like they were going to kick on, much like after they destroyed Manchester United. You felt like, well, they kick on from here and they probably cruise to the title. It seems yesterday against Nottingham Forest like they should have won the game. They absolutely dominated. What do you feel is going on with City that consistency isn't there this season?
Yeah, I wouldn't be overly concerned with that. You're right. After Guardiola's comments a couple of weeks, I got a reaction from the players. Went on a really good run, obviously, to win against Arsenal in particular. Everybody felt, oh, here we go. They got the kind of mojo back. So that was a blow yesterday. Didn't see the game yesterday against Nosfer, but it looks as if they dominated possession, just a little bit loose in their finishing. So I wouldn't be maybe overly concerned with that. You're right in terms of what they're capable of in terms of run. Liverpool are a little bit different because Liverpool aren't the Liverpool of old of 2 years ago, who would have been capable of going on that type of run that you're talking about. Not as easy for them at the moment with the small frailties they have within their squad at the moment. But certainly I think Manchester City are capable. I think it's just mentality. I think with the Manchester City players, spoke about Tottenham today in terms of their mentality, a little bit different from Manchester City, but if they can get themselves in the right kind of headspace, and I think the manager as well, Nathan, a little bit in terms of the tactical setup there last month, looking at it in terms of how he's shaping up the team, kind of back three, and wingers is orthodox wingers playing as kind of wing backs and that kind of box shape in midfield, just kind of tweaking it and just kind of filling around with it a little bit there for me. Guardiola, what he doesn't need to. Manchester City for me are always at their best, orthodox traditional 4-3-3, one holding midfielder, two number 8s in midfield and a front three. That for me, when they're at their very best, you see those fixed patterns of play. I think the players are comfortable in it. I'm not too sure.
He was claiming before the match against Arsenal that he always did this with the inverted left back, and it wasn't unusual for Bernardo Silva to play there because Fabian Delph used to play there, and obviously Zinchenko and Cancelo, that he would ask them to do something similar.
Never saw that initially in the Manchester City career. I've seen it the last couple of years. Not necessarily I'm talking about a flat back forward to begin with. That's your starting position, and that kind of midfield three in front. Now you can talk about fullbacks coming into the central midfield area from that initial formation, but it's that initial formation for me which has always worked. The relationship between the two number 8s, De Bruyne and Gundogan and the front three. I think everybody understands their position in terms of the rotations, the patterns of play. And I think when they're at their best, it's generally off the back of that kind of set formation. You can have a little bit of rotation, but you were talking about fullbacks coming into those central midfield areas. Not a big fan of it myself, but I kind of get it to a point. But generally that 4-3-3 formation works. When they kind of go to a back three, when they go to kind of box shape in midfield, I actually feel as if they overcomplicate the game and actually leaves them a little bit more exposed as well on transitions, on quick counter-attacks. So, yeah, I think sometimes you just got to get out of yourself a little bit. And that's obviously me talking to Pep Guardiola. What do I know? But what I've seen of this Manchester City team, for me, they're always at their best with that kind of fixed formation. I think the players enjoy it. They understand their roles, and it's when they're at their best as an attacking force, and it gives them as much protection as they need when they turn over the ball. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Guardiola sees it in terms of like that kind of formation between now and the end of the season.
Can't let you go without a word for Seamus Coleman, his wonder goal yesterday.
It was a wonder goal.
I think you can get the sense of the fondness for Seamus Coleman, that everybody in the country is so overjoyed that he gets a moment like that. In terms of his overall performance yesterday and where he is, 5 weeks away from France.
Yeah, he played well yesterday. I enjoyed his contest actually with Nanto, who played off the left. He was a good player for Leeds. I actually thought they both played well. It was a really good contest. And what I liked about Seamus was he really disciplined himself, particularly first half yesterday against Nanto. Didn't get himself, talking about Romero getting himself in the forward areas and ahead of the ball. Never did that. Seamus knew he had a job to do against Nanto. He had to kind of nullify his threat, and by and large he done that quite well. And then second half, when the opportunity presented itself to get himself into attacking area, that's exactly what he did, and obviously provided the key moment in the game. And I like his attitude, Seamus. Obviously Paterson's been brought into the football club. He's the future. We know that. Seamus knows that at Everton, but his head hasn't dropped. Hasn't hit the floor. He's got on with it. He's been patient. I'm sure he support when he's on the bench. He gets behind. He's still leading inside the dressing room. And when he's asked to play his part as he was yesterday, Paterson's not available. He comes in and he steps up. Not only stepping up and doing a job for the team, actually excelling and making a big contribution. That's what he did yesterday. That was a massive win for Everton.
He meant it, right?
Oh, he definitely meant it. If you look at kind of body shape, you look at the shape of when he strikes the ball, all the indicators were there, Nathan, that he knew he was kind of home alone there. There was nobody within 20-25 yards of him. And just to have the confidence to know that, but then to have the confidence knowing that if I get this wrong and I sky it over the crossbar, everybody's going to be throwing their hands in the air. What the hell are you doing? What are you thinking of there? You should have just checked out and kept the ball. So real kind of mental strength there to say, no, there's an opportunity here. Maybe a 5-10% chance I can score from here. Might make myself look foolish if I don't execute it, but you know what? I don't care. I'm going to take it on. I've got a chance here to win this game for me football club. I'm going to take it. So, yeah, good luck to him.
What you wouldn't have given for one moment like that, Kenny.
Yeah, no big regrets in that respect. Plenty of others, Nathan, not in that respect.
Great stuff, Kenny.